You are a visionary in your own mind, perhaps, but in this room, you are merely a guest whose presence is starting to wear thin. I don't shake hands with people whose portfolios are built on potential rather than pedigree. I keep my circle sterile, and frankly, you don't meet the sanitation requirements. Victoria Sterling didn't just speak. She performed her arrogance. She stood in the center of the classic private members club, an environment of suffocating old-world prestige. Oak-paneled walls, oil paintings of stern men in gold frames, and a massive, tiered crystal chandelier that hummed with the weight of centuries of gatekeeping. Victoria stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her fingers empty, staring with absolute disdain at the man standing before her. The man was Malik Thorne, a man with deeply pigmented mahogany skin and a quiet authority that seemed to make the club's historical artifacts look like dusty toys. He was dressed in a bespoke charcoal gray three-piece suit with a silk pocket square, new outfit. I was under the impression we were here to discuss the vein capital injection, Miss Sterling, Malik said, his voice a low, melodic resonance that seemed to vibrate the heavy oak tables. He extended his hand, a gesture of professional civility. A handshake is usually the start of a partnership. A partnership implies equality, Victoria interrupted, her voice rising in a calculated escalation of disdain as she looked at his extended hand as if it were a biohazard. Look at this club. Look at the names on the membership board. Do you see anyone else here who looks like they've arrived rather than just been permitted? You're a social seating error. I don't shake hands with the new money that still has the scent of the street on it. Security led this investor to the service exit before the air in here becomes completely unbreathable. The lounge didn't fall silent. It filled with the sharp, jagged laughter of the surrounding elite. A man in a double-breasted velvet smoking jacket leaned back in his leather armchair, smirking at Malik with high society disdain. Honestly, Victoria, the man laughed, swirling a glass of rare peat scotch. He's very committed to the role, a partnership. Maybe he's here to invest in the co-check business? Someone should tell him that this club is for the architects of the world, not the people who provide the scaffolding. The woman beside him joined in, pointing a manicured finger at Malik's charcoal suit. I'll give him $100 to go stand outside and hail my carriage. He looks like he's built for the outdoor elements. Go on, Victoria. Clear the room before the atmosphere becomes inclusive. 12 people in the background were ostensibly minding their business, reading leather-bound newspapers or playing chess with ivory pieces, but 8 others were acting as active witnesses, leaning in to catch every second of the humiliation with judgmental grins. Thanks for the support. We couldn't do this without you. Subscribe for free to help us keep bringing you more stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments. Now, back to the story. Victoria, emboldened by the social jury, took the escalation to its peak. In a moment of raw, unposed physical aggression, she didn't just walk away. She took her half-full glass of chilled white wine and flicked the liquid directly onto Malik's extended hand and his suit sleeve, the cold wine soaking into the wool as she laughed in his face. There, Victoria hissed, her face twisted in a mask of vicious mockery. Now your hand is as liquid as your assets. Now get out before I have the police trespass you. The laughter in the club was a physical weight. Malik didn't flinch. He didn't wipe his hand. He slowly lowered it, the wine dripping onto the Persian rug, his eyes meeting Victoria's with a coldness that caused the club's artificial warmth to vanish. You've spent your life thinking a handshake is a favor you grant to the unworthy Victoria? Malik whispered, the coldness in his tone causing the witnesses' laughter to die instantly. But you forgot that a handshake is a contract of protection. You didn't just reject an investor. You just rejected the only person who can stop the hostile takeover of your family's legacy. And as of this second, I've decided to let the wolves in. The wolves didn't take long to arrive. By 9 a.m. the following morning, the Sterling Group stock had undergone a structural collapse. Victoria Sterling sat in her classic executive office, watching her net worth evaporate on the digital ticker that lined the mahogany walls. The massive, tiered crystal chandelier above her desk flickered as the building's power grid groaned under the weight of the chaos. The heavy walnut doors were pushed open, not by security, but by the board of directors. They looked like men who had seen their own funerals. "Victoria," the chairman whispered, his voice trembling. The vein capital injection didn't just vanish. It flipped. Malik Thorne bought out the short sellers. He doesn't just own our debt now, he owns the board seats. He's liquidating the sterling name by noon. Victoria's arrogance didn't just crack. It shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. She didn't wait for a car. She ran 3 blocks to the Thorne Plaza, her hair disheveled and her expensive silk blouse damp with sweat. She burst into the lobby, where Malik Thorne was standing near the elevators, surrounded by his legal team. He was in a new outfit, a midnight blue pinstripe suit with a silver silk tie. He looked like a monolith of quiet authority. "Malik, please," Victoria screamed, her voice echoing off the marble floors. She didn't just approach him. She fell to her knees in the center of the lobby, her hands reaching out in a desperate, trembling gesture. "I was wrong. I was blind. The club, the wine, it was a lapse in judgment. You have to save the firm. My father's legacy is in those shares." The lobby filled with the sharp, jagged irony of the situation. 20 people were present. 12 were minding their business, but 8 of the same witnesses from the club the night before happened to be there for a separate meeting. They watched from the periphery, their faces frozen in a mask of raw, irreversible shock as they saw the queen of the Sterling Group begging on the floor.
"A handshake, Victoria," Malik said, his voice a low, melodic resonance that felt like a gavel striking. "You said it was a sanitation requirement. You said I didn't meet the pedigree. Now, you're on the floor of my building, asking me to touch the very legacy you said I'd ruin. I'll do anything." Victoria sobbed, her manicured fingers clutching at the air near his shoes. "I'll issue a public apology. I'll step down. Just don't liquidate the sterling name." "You already stepped down, Victoria," Malik countered, his eyes like cold flint. "The second you flicked that wine, you signed the incompetence clause. I'm not saving your career, I'm recycling it. The Sterling Group is being rebranded as Thorne Logistics. Your father's paintings are being moved to the service hallway of my new warehouse. And as for you," Malik extended his hand, not to help her up, but to gesture toward the door. "I believe you mentioned something about the service exit yesterday. It's on the left. I suggest you use it before I have the sanitation team remove the blemish from my lobby." The 8 witnesses who had laughed at Malik the night before were now deathly silent, realizing that their own firms were next on Malik's list. The man in the velvet smoking jacket, now in a standard suit, looked down at the floor, unable to meet Malik's gaze. Victoria Sterling remained on her knees as Malik walked into the elevator. She had begged him to save her career, but he had already erased it. The doors slid shut with a silent, final hiss, leaving the former queen to find her own way out of the world she had tried to gatekeep.